What the heck? The Navy. I hear that sometimes, and it's soothing, and I don't know why. But I'm gonna tell you where it came from, and well, where the title for this came from. So I had to leave the state of Colorado because my rights were trampled, like I was a dog, like I wasn't a human being, and I traveled all over. I went to California, and I went to Washington State, and I went to Montana, and I went to, well, a lot of places. And I didn't really feel at home with people, you know? Like I grew up in a system. I don't understand you white people, and I don't want to say that, but I haven't understood you guys ever. When I came to Chapman, I was so fucking confused. How can so many fucking people hate people they've never met? Oh yeah, yep, that's what it is. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Now you might think these guys running around and teaching their families all this racist stuff is all of the reason for this. Well, in a small town, there's one day of the year where it is super reinforced by even people who you wouldn't consider racist. They're pissed off because the bank isn't open. See, black people here to say. Now, today, I got a wonderful treat. I got to see 6 different black people in town. And you might think that that's weird. It's not weird. When I was growing up, I had a little bit of time on the playground in an area where, you know, it's mixed. I mean, it's not a bunch of white kids in class, especially not in Longmont, not in the 1980s. So it was multicultural there. And when I was in the system and in the foster homes, I mean, most of the foster kids that I was with, believe it or not, were black kids. Why is that? Well, I'm going to tell you how little black boys and girls make the government a lot of money. So what you do, y'all understand that black people are arrested at a much higher rate than white people. They have a much higher rate, and they also have a much longer mean time in between court dates. One of the guys that I was in jail with, he hadn't had a court date in 5 months. I said, well, how long you been here? He said, 5 months. Well, fuck. Y'all don't see a problem with that? You're supposed to have a bond hearing within 24 hours of being there, and they denied me that everywhere. Nearly everywhere. The nasty little tricks that they pulled on me, they pull on black people. And y'all want to understand a little bit about me. Number one, if something fucked up like that is happening to someone, I'm going to say something. I'm going to say something. I'm going to try to find a way to document it. And when I'm having a panic attack, this is the only way to do it because every other form is too slow. So, in order to try to get your brain palette thinking a little bit along the same lines as mine, the title of this video John Nomee, he was super drunk, and he went through this whole thing where he was saying things in Crow, because it's Crow country, and then he was reciting it in English, and he kept tapping me on my shoulder as he's saying it, like before he says it in English. After he does this a few times, I start saying it, and he's nodding instead of doing it. And the only part that I really remember out of the prayer, I feel bad because I don't even know what the words mean. What the heck? The lady. But his voice was deep and it was soothing. And like I said, he was pretty drunk. And he said to me, real men don't cry. That's why they're a myth. All right. You know, that does make perfect sense. When I read about what a real man is, a real man doesn't cry, right? There's all this other stuff that a real man is. And I read a lot of different renditions from women and a lot of different renditions from men. That's what Facebook allows you to do. It allows you to see a lot of different people's opinions, a lot of different people's ideas, to be able to share those great ideas. Were you sharing great ideas, or are you guys arguing? Are you fighting? Are you being overly critical? Are you being video game trolls on Facebook? I wasn't. But I had to deal with enough of those people that I do it back. I am a video game troll on Facebook. Is that okay? No, I don't personally think it's okay. That's the point. That is the point. If it's not okay for me to do to them, it's against the law for me to even say that I would do something like that to someone else. I'm a terrible person, right? Those are wrong things to do, right? That was my point in doing so. If these things happen to me, it's difficult to get people to take a look. If I talk in a calm voice, when I go and talk to these professionals, they don't want to do their fucking jobs. They don't want to have to actually work any more than they have to. A lot of people are like that, especially when you get one of those jobs where, God, you were all gung-ho on day one. You know, you really were. But eventually you lose hope. You see how screwed up the system is. You just lose hope and you're just there for a paycheck, and you do as you're told and you do as you're instructed, and you make sure that you keep your job because you need it, even if you hate it. I've known a couple of caseworkers that were like that. They're like, you know, I hate being a caseworker. I hate hearing all these people's problems, and I try to come out, and like everywhere I go, there's roadblocks. Like, you know, if there's a problem like that, we just tell them to go see a therapist. Yeah, and the therapist is in there talking to the police. So if the therapist is in there trying to talk to the police, and the police are like, we're just going to go tell them to talk to you, you see how it makes it difficult when you've done everything that you can, and then you're not allowed to cry because you're a man. You're not allowed to cry when your friends die. You're not allowed to hurt when you can't see your loved ones. You're not allowed to feel betrayed. You're not allowed to ever be angry. You're not allowed to stand up for yourself. And when you stand up for others, people say you just need to worry about yourself. Excuse me, those are my rights too. Even if it is a black person who is being treated like I was. Yes, that's exactly the point. Those rights are my rights too. Colorado tries to teach exclusively bullying, and they do coordinate, and they do work together. And that maneuver where they try to break your wrist, they did that to me as well, not just Ventus. And see, that's the thing. I really need to dig through Betsy Prowell. I have a picture of her and her wrist, and I'm gonna post it up for you. Now, you know what the difference is between both these people and myself? Well, I don't bruise easily, but that's not it. I don't know if Ventus bruises easily or if Betsy Prowell bruises easily, but I do know that I don't. And I do know that my wrists were bruised, and that they were puffy, and that they were red, and that the skin was broken. Although my skin wasn't broken as badly as Ventus's, that's because of the way the cuffs were on me and the amount of movement that was allowed there. It was just digging in slow pressure for most of it because they turned my wrist sideways once they had the cuffs locked in place. They knew exactly what they were doing. They have now taken a mechanical device, okay, a mechanical device, and they have, you see how thick my wrist is right here? They shrunk it down, all right, but not this way. They shrunk it down this way, and you see how much smaller that is? They did this arm though. They put my arms in the cuffs, and Lolatai twisted my wrist so those cuffs were squeezing on the sides right here. It was excruciating. The whole time I was in excruciating pain. The entire time. When Lolatai was trying to break my leg, it did hurt a fucking shit ton. But it didn't hurt nothing like my back and nothing like my wrist. Lolatai hurt my knee. He hurt my hip. He hurt my ankle. And then they outright lied. I want you guys to understand that those videos that I posted, they claimed that I had a weapon. Do you see a weapon? They claimed that I assaulted the police. Not just assaulted the police, but assaulted them with a weapon. I want to see the weapon. The video is here on my YouTube. Videos. There's multiple angles. You get to see how they pick me up by bending my wrist. And then they twist it sideways. And then they lift my arms. Now, mind you, I do have problems with my right shoulder. There was a while there where I couldn't use it at all, but I did blacksmithing for a little bit, long enough to free it up, and oh my god, it hurt, and it still does. Now, that wasn't something that Waylon Lolatai did. I'm able to take a lot of pain, a lot of it. But everyone has their threshold. No fear, that's a myth. Real men don't cry. If that's on your list of what makes a real man, I'm going to tell you what kind of men don't cry. Men with no emotion. And possibly sadistic serial killers. I don't know. I've never asked one if they do cry. But everybody else does. If you want somebody who's sick and twisted like that, and I have noticed that the more characteristics that a male has towards that propensity, or anger, though, that he puts into it as well, that seems to be an important part of whether or not he's attractive. It's not an indicator of whether he's a good man or a bad man. But as far as attractiveness goes, it's a safety and security thing. And then, of course, I can't say that because if I do, then a lot of people get the opinion that I'm trying to say that women need a man, and I'm not. Because, see, here's the thing is that men are exactly the same way, they're just not allowed to admit it. Not allowed to admit it. So, girls are taught between being a human being and following social etiquette rules that make all of us slaves and all of us dumber, make all of us stifled. You cannot function or perform when you are emotionally destroyed. Now, some people say that's when I shine best. In specific, of course, I suppose that would depend on the situation. I don't know. But the idea that men don't cry, where do you get that from? I mean, how many stories have we heard going all the way back past the Romans, past the Greeks, written stories of men crying on the battlefield? And what's the most common thing said by a soldier before death? Mom. Mom. Now, I've read different variations where it's, this one right here, it has a few extra words at the beginning and then mom. And then another one, the word mom might be in the middle. And another one, mom, might be at the very end. But the word mom, when people are dying, they want their mother. I don't know if I want my mother. When I die, I want to die in peace, you know? And it would be nice to make peace with my mother, but there's certain things with certain people where you got to understand that you have done so much for them, so much that they ask, not what you wanted to force on them or falsely expect of them because you don't understand. There's only so much that you can be taken for. And when it's people that you love, it hurts that much more. I can take a lot of physical pain. What Waylon Lolatai did to me, he did intentionally because he gets off on it. And then in order to protect Officer Waylon Lolatai of the Boulder Police Department, who coordinated with the Broomfield Police Department to illegally have me harmed in that fashion, through lies and deception, and I had to deal with it all alone. And every single one of those phone calls, every single one should have been recorded. Every single time that I spoke to the police, it should have been recorded. When I said I needed somebody in person to go with me, there was a reason for that. If there is a witness there paying attention, they're less likely to railroad you and pull that bullshit because there is a witness. There is somebody who can verify your story. But then again, with the shit that I was going through and with the threats that are going to my friends and my loved ones against their lives, as well as Natalie's loved ones, Now, I'm talking very specifically about Danica Garner and Rochelle Shelley Campbell, who let me know for, well, quite a while how afraid they were of Ted Bollinger, and so did Rose M. Kelly. So did Alicia Bollinger and Natalie Bollinger. And instead of speaking up and putting him away, they worked together to manipulate. Real men don't cry, right? Then there's no such thing as a good man. No such thing. Because men who don't cry are evil men. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you have cried, then you're not a monster, you're a human being. And you need to understand that. You are a human being. You are deserving of love. And I'm not talking about in love. I'm not talking about anything to do with sex. I'm talking about the fact that both men and women seek companionship. Whether it's toward the opposite gender or their own, doesn't make any difference. They want to feel that. You want to feel that warmth. And it's a different kind of warmth. Those of you who give good hugs, you know what those feel like. You know that it's a radiation, a radiance through your body, and that's the chemicals that your body is producing because you're having a physical interaction with another human being. And you know what? They're trying to show how important dogs are for that. Because dogs are important for that. A lot of men, if they had a dog, they'd cry less. You know, and I see that men and women are trained completely different, yet nearly exactly the same. Little boys, here's how to properly hit a woman. Little girls, here's the way to properly hit a man. And then we get into this world of social etiquette and expectations instead of honesty. And then when you're honest and you're just being straightforward, people say you're brutally honest. I'm like, I don't see how this is hurting you. I don't understand how this is hurting you. I mean, on an emotional level, because I don't get embarrassed. I feel a lot of other emotions, but I don't get embarrassed. And I've seen my entire life how embarrassment, not shame or greed, although shame very much does go hand in hand with embarrassment. But embarrassment is what people do the most cruel things over. You don't have to be ashamed to be embarrassed. But you're embarrassed if you're ashamed. It's too windy for my lighters to work, so I can't smoke tobacco. All my little half cigarettes over here are too short to light. And that's just trivial stuff that doesn't matter in the grand scheme of anything. What I'm wearing, whose shoes I'm wearing, where I got them from, that's not even important. I hear so many conversations that people have that I'm like, why would you even talk about that? I mean, we could literally live in a utopia if people learned how to have an actual conversation and how to actually care about other things instead of everyone in America being taught how to fucking spit, snicker, and fucking piss all over everybody else. Like, oh, you have a difference of opinion? You live a different lifestyle? I'm just going to be disrespectful and mean. And then you've got the other person probably doing the same thing, but if they're not doing the same thing, they're going to get fed up eventually and start doing the same thing, and they're all fighting over trivial shit. And they're all crying over this trivial shit. But real men don't cry. How true can that possibly be? I know so many fathers who cry, who still cry. I've known a few people in my lifetime who were men who lost custody of their children because of things they didn't do, and they killed themselves. And that's the thing, is that for those men, being accused of things that they didn't do, not being allowed to face their accusers, and having their children taken away forever, or until they're 18. Yeah, usually by the time the dad has not been in their life for that long, mom has taught them that dad is a terrible fucking monster, and if they ever see him, and I've heard this out of many people's mouths, if I ever met my dad, I'd fucking kill him. Now me, I am lucky in that fashion. I do know my dad. Now everybody looks at somebody else, and there's this one thing that that other person has that they don't. So when that other person has that, and they don't, well, then you get a lot more issues that you're crying over stupid stuff at this point. You're shooting each other and stabbing each other and fucking killing each other over fucking retarded shit. And we're not supposed to cry. And I have seen so many men cry, especially recently, and real men don't cry, right? And by recently, I'm not talking about the last week or the last month or even the last year. This country has been sick, way sick, and flooded with hatred for the last 4 years. Everybody wants to hate each other and not get nothing positive done. Why are we listening to a jackass in office? I mean, fucking seriously. Fuck what Donald Trump says and does. And that's not even saying anything disrespectful towards him. It's saying that there are 8 million people in the world. Everything isn't Donald Trump's fault. We can work together. And it doesn't fucking matter what Donald Trump says if we're getting along. Now here's what we need to fucking do. I'm going to tell you in the next video so I can make it sweet and short and all of that fucking bullshit.